welcome to the second edition, live edition of the Millennial Manifesto, coming to you live from Facebook. We will not be doing the intro that we did last time because our producer said it was the worst thing possible we could have ever done.
Yeah.
Literally just a few seconds ago, just
disaster.
said, oh my god, how horrible could that have been? But anyways, welcome.
This is the Millennial Manifesto, hosted live from the campus of Scottsdale Community College in Scottsdale, Arizona, in conjunction with Northeast Valley News. That's nevalleynews.org. I'm Jeremy Barron, and I'm an enemy of the American people.
I'm Leon Lejeunesse, and I'm a cool cat.
That is true.
I am a cool cat, man.
We are joined today by our first return guest,
First ever.
Usama Shami of the Islamic Community Center in Phoenix. Usama, how are you?
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Really nice round of applause. Thanks for coming back and on this beautiful day here in Scottsdale.
Great day. Although I have one comment.
Yeah.
You know, this is an insult because I went to University of Arizona.
Ah.
I'm doing this with the Arizona State University T-shirt.
Proud Sun Devil here.
You know, but I'll still do that.
I'll
appreciate
you
it.
guys from killing each other over here. I'll keep this from getting too aggressive. Hide the weapons here.
Yeah, you better hide those Crusader
tiny,
swords.
tiny swords.
Yeah.
Like needles.
Anyway, they do hurt.
They actually
We have played with them before.
The first like live thing we kind of did, we were just like stabbing each other with them.
It kind of hurt. I pricked my hand.
I had a little bit of blood coming out. It was really awful. I'll tell you now. A lot of blood was shed on that day.
So you can see we have gone live before. We did it last week. You can find the audio of our first Facebook Live experiments. It's on nevalleynews.org. We had Carlos Alfaro from Arizona Talks on the program. Great interview with him. So
That was fantastic.
You can see the layout of our desk here. We're gonna hang loose over here. We hang loose. We have a little waving dinosaur.
We have
10 man cave commandments. That's right.
Must obey by the 10 man cave commandments. Thou shalt never moan about the brand of beer from a buddy's fridge. However, complain at will, the temperature is unsuitable.
Especially number 5. Number 5 is...
Thou shalt never let friends wear Speedos, ever issue clothes.
That is like the credo right there.
Exactly. I will on the last day do it just to make some people upset, because you know what?
I'll be very upset. It'll take away from your Tucker Carlson vibe over here.
So, what'd you do this weekend, Jeremy?
This weekend, well, yesterday I went to a concert at the Dodge Theater. I went to see A Perfect Circle.
Okay.
Great show, worst opening act I've ever seen.
Who was it?
That's the thing, they didn't tell us. There was no name. They were two guys talking all about like satanic rituals. In like drum machine over here, howling synthesizer over here. Like the dude was howling and he was playing his voice through like a modulator. It was horrible. Everyone was booing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of the things where you just demand half of your money back, because like that's half the show right there almost.
The main act made it worthwhile.
Okay.
That was
a little odd, yeah. I went to a wedding this weekend.
You did?
I got really, as you could say, had a fun time. Let's just say I had a fun time.
Yeah, let's not use any other words.
No, this is a family-friendly show, mind you. But no, it was good. My brother got married. It was great to see all the family. It's always awkward when you see those family members that you haven't seen in like a long time, and it's just like, hey, I forgot your name.
Yeah.
And you feel bad because it's like, but you're like my cousin, like straight, like you're my dad's brother's son, and I have no idea who the hell you are.
Yeah, families are so weird.
Right? I know. Who invented them? Who made them? I don't know.
God did.
God, whoever made it, or Science Earth, Yoda, whoever.
Yoda.
It's a weird.
Are you wearing the socks today? What kind of socks do we have here? Oh yeah, Obi-Wan socks.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, people.
Those are great.
The Master Jedi that teaches the greatest power known in the universe, the Force. Get a good shot at there, Oli. These are rare. The rarest of the rare.
I've got a good feeling about this.
How so?
As opposed to bad feeling, I've got a good feeling.
All right. Want to dive right in?
Before we do that,
I
want to talk about the latest installment of Jeremy's Food Truck.
Ah, yes.
Yes. It's our new bi-weekly thing where I go around the valley and tell you all about some really good food spots you should be trying. Matt's Big Breakfast is the one I want to talk about this week. 3 valley locations. One of them is, I think, 2nd Street in Roosevelt.
Okay.
I think it's one of them, yeah.
Okay.
That was the original. Another one's at Sky Harbor, and I think there's a third one in Tempe by ASU's Tempe campus. Best breakfast in the state.
By far?
By far.
Are you going to go that far?
Pancakes, waffles, they got amazing breakfast food.
Is it better than Lolo's?
They don't serve the same thing as Lolo's. We will talk about Lolo's on a future edition.
Okay. Just
You
saying, man.
made me play my hand there.
I did.
I didn't want to talk about Lolo's.
I called your bluff.
You did, man. But Matt's Big Breakfast, go there.
All right.
It's relatively affordable. Best breakfast food in the state. Let's dive right in. What's trending? What's trending? The first segment on our live edition of the Millennial Manifesto podcast. 5 topics, 5 minutes. The latest news. Let's start with Saturday. On Saturday, President Donald Trump gave the go-ahead for a military strike on an airfield in Syria, the first major military decision of his presidency. The president approved the launch of 59 Tomahawk missiles on an evacuated airfield in response to the haunting images which emerged from last week's chemical gas attack in the war-torn Middle Eastern nation ruled by Bashar al-Assad. The decision to launch the missiles has been lauded by the U.S. press, but questions abound on what this means for future Syria and Middle Eastern policy.
On Monday, Neil Gorsuch was appointed as the 113th Supreme Court Justice, filling the vacancy left behind by Antonin Scalia. Republicans had used the quote-unquote nuclear option on Neil Gorsuch as the Senate was not able to reach the 60-vote threshold they needed to approve him. The nuclear option was brought about back in 2013 by Democratic Senator Harry Reid in response to Republican filibusters. This may not be the only seat Trump can fill in the Supreme Court, as there may be up to a possible 3 more Supreme Court justices to retire soon, likely like Kennedy and Ginsburg.
This past weekend, President Trump met with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping at Mar-a-Lago in Florida. The meeting was hyped up as the first summit between the leaders of arguably the world's 2 most prominent superpowers, but it didn't really live up to the hype. Fortune characterized it as a meeting filled with, quote, warm declarations of goodwill and mutual respect between the 2 men. Not too dramatic. Trump has previously threatened to label China as a currency manipulator and slap huge taxes on Chinese imports. He also has claimed that the Chinese created the hoax of global warming.
Palm Sunday, which marks the beginning of Christians' Holy Week, started off with a tragic note as 2 Christian churches in Egypt were attacked by ISIS bombs. According to ABC News, the death toll is up to 44 and the injured mark is up to 126. The first bomb exploded in the Coptic Christian church in the Nile Delta town of Tanta, and the second hours later after the St. Mark's Cathedral in the coastal city of Alexandria, the historic seat of the Christianity in Egypt. This quote coming from ABC News. In light of these events, Egypt declared an official state of emergency in response to these events.
Last Thursday, April 6th, CNN Money reported that the Trump administration was being sued by Twitter as it attempted to unmask the identity of a quote-unquote rogue Twitter account at Alt-US-CIS, or Alternative U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. This account is one of the many alternative accounts that have popped up since Trump's inauguration in January. That includes accounts for Rogue NASA, the Rogue National Park Service, and the Alternative EPA. The following day, however, Trump's administration backed down, according to MarieClaire.com, and Twitter withdrew the lawsuit. That is what's trending.
That's the music we usually have, but we got to fill it with our own stuff.
You have a future in this.
I really do.
You were about as good as the opening act last night. Maybe better.
There we go. All right. So again, moving on to our next segment, Face Off.
Face Off!
We're going to talk about these subjects that we just discussed here in trending.
From our own special perspectives, and they are special.
We are truly special people.
Yeah. Let's start with Syria.
Let's go right into it.
I have things to say about this.
Let me hear them.
I'm sure you do as well, but where do I even start with this? This is terrible.
Continue.
Like, yes, I think we can, all of us agree in this room that Assad is a despot. He is a despicable ruler and leader, and he has routinely gone to great lengths to destroy, kill his own people. But the United States' response to this, I don't want to call it funny. I think it's dumb. I think it's short-sighted, which is very typical of this administration. Okay, Trump went for an evacuated airfield, okay, and he missed with 36 and 59 missiles. That's Brock Osweiler accuracy. Okay, this was not brilliant strategy, U.S. press. He's not a leader. He's a moron who didn't get congressional approval and used this as a distraction from the various other scandals engulfing his administration.
So I'm gonna just use this little bit I stole from Ben Shapiro. I'm gonna use this for another thing.
Oh God.
A couple years ago, I do believe one side was saying something about another president using non-congressional approval, using quote-unquote.
Obama never struck Syria.
He never struck Syria, but he did strike a whole lot of other places without congressional approval.
We're not talking about Syria.
The shoe is on the other foot. Now you care about the president overstepping his boundaries. Funny how that works. And again, it's not the greatest response to something. I still kind of have been back and forth on how I feel about this. But again, if this is just like kind of in the scheme of things, if he responds in a sort of way without using ground troops and just using these type of attacks that actually work, and you're right, this seems not to be a good hit. It was an evacuated airfield. You said
they evacuated the airfield.
You said Brock Osweiler actually, which I found
36 to 59 missed.
And like I said, if he doesn't go into more things, because I don't want to see troops on the ground, but I also don't want to see more death like that, like what happened with the gas attack. So we can talk about the better ways to do it, but I will give him credit for at least doing something, even if it was not well planned.
Yeah, and this leads. Yeah, I don't agree with that. This leads to more questions about what the hell Syria policy is going to be, and is this going to start another war? I think those accounts are a little extreme, but what does this mean? And I think it was short-sighted. I think it was extremely reactionary, which Trump is, and the United States press, the media, has gone all in on this, supporting the airstrike, because the media in this country has always had a major. This is a family-friendly program, so I'm not going to say the word I want to say. You know what I want to say.
I know exactly what you want to say.
They have a major thing for war. Going to war creates stories, and going to war gets the masses excited. And the United States media's obsession with war is sickening. Frankly, did you see what Brian Williams said on NBC?
I did not.
Saying how beautiful.
Oh no, I saw that. He's like,
how
beautiful the shots.
How beautiful the missile strike was. Sickening. Absolutely disgusting. Brian Williams should be ashamed of himself. He shouldn't be on television. He's a fraud.
Yeah, I agree with that though. He shouldn't be on television. He should not be on television. Ultimately, let's hope this not leads to war, and let's hope that always pray for peace. Moving on.
Well, I want to ask Usama about this first.
Absolutely.
Usama,
absolutely.
When you saw some of the images that came out of the chemical gas attack, which I think took 80 lives, including many children, where did your mind go? Are these people, in your estimation, truly Muslims? How horrible was this to you?
Well, this is, it's horrible to see death, regardless if it's, Muslims or non-Muslims. But this has been going on for the past 7 years. I mean, to me, barrel bombs that Assad has been dropping from the helicopters and filled with chlorine gas, this is also a form of chemical weapons. Now, going back to when President Obama was in power, and he talked about a red line that Syria should not cross, and backed out from that. I don't like war, but I think there needs to be a credible threat of using military power as a deterrent, and that did not happen. And since that did not happen, they agreed that to remove chemical weapons from Syria. He's been killing with impunity. I mean, the sad thing is that people just saw the latest one, but if you look at what happened between 2012 and 13 until now, it's devastating. I mean, you look at buildings, hospitals. So, and you see rebels where they're pulling kids from rebels. It's devastating and it's sad. So, having said that, I'm also conflicted in terms of, like many other Muslims, are conflicted with respect to what to think about the military strike. I mean, there needs to be boundaries and limits, and there needs to be messages that sent to people that kill their citizens or kill anybody else and use weapons of mass destruction. But at the same time, you would think about, well, was this meant as a distraction? As you mentioned, what is the policy? Because the next day they were flying planes out of that airfield. The Russians knew about it. So basically, there needs to be a coherent policy, not only from the U.S., and I also blame a lot of Middle Eastern countries around Syria for not helping. And although, I mean, I can see, like, Jordan has 1.7 million refugees that are, and Jordan is a small country, very limited resources. You have about 2 million refugees in Turkey. But if you look at the Gulf states, they didn't take their share of refugees. they're not helping to resolve this issue, although removing Assad from power is in their own interest. So there needs to be a comprehensive policy, and also the relationship between Trump administration and Russia does not help, because then you don't know what's underneath the surface. Are they friends? Are they foes? So how can they come up with a comprehensive policy, including the Russians, and that to end this conflict without knowing, how they're speaking to Russians? Yeah. So that's my 2 cents.
Mm-hmm. Understood. Let's move on.
Moving on. Bringing back the shoe bit. The shoe is on the other foot, Democrats. Neil Gorsuch got appointed through the nuclear option. No one wanted to see the nuclear option always be used. But who brought this up? Harry Reid. And
that's
that dumb, stupid person.
Dumb, stupid person.
No one wants to see.
Very technical.
Everyone wants to see the laws be going around, but everyone wants to see the laws actually be put forth and be used the way they're supposed to be used. But guess what? Who was telling them you shouldn't put forth a nuclear option in 2013? How does it feel to have the shoe on the other foot? That's all I gotta say.
You can put your shoe on?
I don't put the shoe back on. I don't want to discuss it.
Appreciate it, Rob. That's good. Okay, yeah, Harry Reid did institute a nuclear option, and a lot has been made of Barack Obama's comments after the 2008 election, where he said elections have consequences. Those comments have not aged well, because now the Republicans are remaking Washington in their very sick, twisted image. But Gorsuch is going to be on the Supreme Court for another 30 years, probably.
He's young.
He's 49. He's going to continue to favor corporations over small businesses and the consumer and the population at large.
He's going to force the laws the law states.
He's going to damage lives.
He's going to enforce the law. The law needs to be enforced the way the law goes. I mean, we're going to disagree on this, and let's just put that.
I think what we can agree on, though, is that the way the Supreme Court has been politicized is wrong.
It's wrong.
Okay.
Completely wrong.
Because Gorsuch is out here at the White House yesterday talking about his confirmation process. Okay, and he's out here getting the whole speech and the remarks from Trump and all that. The way it's become politicized is really not how it was intended to become anyway.
Exactly. It's really sad to see the Supreme Court become a way for people just to enact laws instead of actually doing it the right way.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
All right, United States Chinese relations. We had the summit between Trump and Xi on Friday at Mar-a-Lago, where Trump spends all his weekends at great taxpayer expense. Leon, U.S.-Chinese relations are complex.
Very.
But how important do you think it is to get along with China?
Ultimately,
as someone on the center right of the aisle.
Honestly, I don't like going along with people that are like, China is essentially a communist state. They claim not to be, but they are. I'm not a big fan of them, but the only way you're going to deal with this problem like North Korea is having some relations with China. Ultimately, they're like how I view Russia. I don't like Russia, but they're there, and we've got to figure out a way to not necessarily work with them and be peaceful, but we got to be able to get things done, essentially.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with your initial statement, which is China is essentially communist. They are they're no longer communist. Well, they are communist People's Republic of China. They are officially a communist government. Yeah. But there has been a lot of liberalization in the past 20, 30 years.
Yeah, they're not like what they used to be.
They're not capitalist. Okay, no. They're not free market.
Yeah.
But they're not truly communist anymore. Yeah, exactly. China, Vietnam are no longer truly communist. But North Korea obviously is. North Korea is a danger, and I think the United States and China can unite on that. But Trump can't be going around making these inane threats, which he can't really help himself doing. Moving on.
So last Sunday was a very important day for Christians and fellow Catholics like myself. It was the beginning of our Holy Week. Palm Sunday is a big holiday, and this just goes to show that no matter who, everyone's in danger in the Middle East. Most people that get attacked are Muslims. The Jewish people in Israel is under attack, and Christians are always under attack. This is a problem that, there's a lot of innocent lives are getting lost, and this was something that was sad to see also as well. People just wanted to celebrate a holiday, ended up getting exploded from suicide bombs, and this sadly happens to every person of faith and any faith in the Middle East, and it's just sad to see. And again, pray for the lives there. Hopefully people can come together and just try to solve these terrible issues.
Very well said. I don't think you're going to say it better.
Yeah.
Last thing. Twitter and the rogue accounts, there are so many of these accounts, and most of them are run by people in these agencies. A couple department staffers who've decided to open these Twitter accounts to object to the heinous policies being created in these agencies. So good for Twitter for standing up for one of its Twitter accounts, refusing to unmask the identity of who is running it, the people running it. Good for them.
Yeah.
It would violate the First Amendment otherwise to free speech.
Then that's where it becomes complicated, just because it's like, where does the line go between free speech and the company's right to do whatever they want? But they say they want to stand for free speech, so yeah, it's good for them to stand for what they said they want to stand for.
And Trump, of course, backed down because he's a loser. That's Face Off. And moving right along now to commies and bombies here.
The biggest explosive part of this TMN podcast. Boom!
Boom!
Let's move on.
Yeah, we are going to be talking about, this week, we're going to debate the war on internet privacy, why you should be worried, and what you can do to protect yourself from having your browsing history sold to the highest bidder. Are you ready, Leon?
Let's go.
Let's do it. Late last month, Congress voted to overturn Obama-era FCC regulations, overturning the need for internet provider permission to share and sell your browsing history. Internet providers like AT&T, Comcast, Verizon, etc., they no longer have to ask to keep the things you search for and look at online. And this means more targeted advertising and the loss of consumer privacy. Even in private browsing or an incognito window, your ISP can still view what you're viewing. You're not safe just because you turn an incognito window to watch whatever you're going to watch. Wink, wink. If the government wants to view your activities, your ISP will provide it and you won't be notified. And there is an argument, a popular argument, that just because if you have nothing to hide, then you shouldn't be afraid of this. Everyone has something to hide. Everyone needs privacy. Everyone wants to keep something locked away that they don't want people to find out. It's an inane argument. So what can you do to protect yourself? What can you do from preventing your internet service provider from looking at your browsing history? What can you do, Leila?
Get off the grid. Don't go on the internet.
Well, you're half right. Okay. Here are some tips, viewers, to get with the program here in 2017 to protect yourself from those ISP hawks trying to sell your browsing data. You can download a VPN, a virtual private network. That what a VPN allows you to do is to tunnel to a remote location, either in the United States, around the world, North America, South America, Europe. It allows you to change your IP address, your internet protocol address, so that you're not detected. Or you are detected, but your internet service provider thinks you're somewhere else. Something else you can do is use a special browser called the Tor browser. The Tor browser, I have it. It's a little slower than other browsers like Chrome or Opera. Opera, by the way, has a built-in VPN. The Tor browser is extremely private. They don't collect any of your data. Their servers do not collect your data. So the Tor browser is a tool that you should use to browse the internet securely and safely without any fear that your internet service provider will protect you. The Opera browser, as I mentioned, has a built-in VPN. Also, you can use an extension called HTTPS Everywhere, which makes every website you visit secure, so that your information cannot be detected, cookies cannot be recorded, etc. Leon, do you think I'm overreacting?
Not at all.
Or do you think I'm justified here?
I actually think you're justified here. I actually agree with you. This is something that's very, like, a lot of neocons try to argue. They put the, oh, if you've got nothing to hide, then why worried or something about that? And that was the famous reason for the, what was that bill that Bush got passed? The Patriot Act.
Patriot Act, yeah.
This is something I think both agree on. This is a very much so a violation of privacy. And honest to God, this is something that, frankly, I was upset about certain things that happened under the Obama administration with the internet, and I'm going to be very pissed when this stuff happens under Trump administration. This is stuff that is not cool. It's a complete violation of privacy.
We all have things to hide. We don't want people looking at our stuff.
And even if it's not
especially as journalists.
And even if it's not even that bad, you just don't want people peeking. It's just the fact that you just want privacy. It is I feel like it's an absolute human right to be able to have privacy if you're just a normal person.
So you guys are going to want to look at a VPN. They're pretty cheap. The one I use is TunnelBear. It's $9.99 a month. It's adorable. So I'll show you.
I've seen the thing. It makes sense. And I've seen that in middle
cute.
It's so cute.
The Opera browser, the Tor browser, HTTPS everywhere. Make sure you get that extension. That's how you can make yourself as secure as possible in a time when Congress wants to strip you of your security to make money.
Because, politics sucks. That's all I got to say about that.
Politics sucks. Yeah.
All right.
Anything else?
Oh, no,
all right.
I think we're good with that.
All right, Usama, let's bring you in now.
Pivot.
You are our first return guest.
Thank you.
I'm amazed that you liked us so much you agreed to come back.
Next time you don't wear that t-shirt.
I will not wear your shirt next time. I might just reverse it.
Just inside out the whole time. We'll put a paper over the Arizona State Park.
Yeah.
All right, so moving into, of course, Last week we're talking about the Mosul strike and the gas attacks. A lot of people out there, you said this has been going on for 7 years, and a lot of people were wondering, why is somebody like Assad attacking his own people? Why is there a civil war? Can you just quickly go over what exactly is happening right now in Syria? Why is there a civil war?
And again, to do that, I think for people it benefits them to understand how these governments came into power.
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of Syria, Syria was a French colony back in the 20s and 30s. And if you look at the history, is that the population did not cooperate with the French. So Assad comes from a minority sect called Alawites, and the Alawites were the only ones that collaborated with the French. So before ending the French occupation of Syria, the Alawites were the ones that were in the army. They were the ones that were put in power and key positions, and the ones that were trained. And although officially the Alawites did not take hold of power until the 60s, they were already set in those key positions. Now, why is that important? Because you see the same thing happens all over the Middle East, where you have regimes that their only purpose is to stay in power. They don't care about their own people. So basically, why does he kill his own people? Well, because if the people were given freedoms, they will vote him out of power, and he doesn't want to lose that power. And you see the same thing, for example, in Egypt. You talked about the attacks on the Coptic churches, and ISIS claimed responsibility. But I would like also people to analyze, when did ISIS start? And I'm not saying that there is a conspiracy theory that ISIS was created by a certain power, but it was allowed to flourish in the Middle East because it serves a purpose. And the purpose is basically ISIS came to the media and to the attention of everybody after the Arab Spring. And the Arab Spring wanted to depose old regimes and to start with the democratic regimes with young people.
Yeah, there was, when the Arab Spring went down, I remember there was a lot of hope and optimism going around that there was going to be a lot of change going on, and then out of nowhere came just ISIS out of the blue. Yeah.
Exactly. And what happened is that ISIS was used politically to scare people into not going against the governments, because the options that they were given, you either have a strong dictatorship, or you end up with a chaos like what ISIS is doing. So in Egypt, they had democratic elections. The president that won at that time won with 52% of the vote, which makes sense. The country was divided politically. Yet after 1 year, you had a counter-revolution that put back the military in power. So you see now, for example, the Coptic church bombing. They say that ISIS is the one that claims it. It could be, but do I think that the security apparatus in Egypt didn't know about this and they could not prevent it? It's very hard to believe that. And I think these type of actions, sectarian violence, basically divides population, and then they support the military regime and the dictatorship. So Assad is the same thing. They play on those divisions. So you talk to a Syrian Christian and they support Assad because they think that if he's not in power, then ISIS is going to come and kill them. So they play on those divisions.
Yeah.
These people have no interest in democracy. They have no interest in having their people free and well, because the way they think about their country is that they own this. It's like Syria. Assad thinks that Syria is a farm. If you have a farm with sheep and cows, would you be responsible to take a cow and slaughter that cow? Nobody's going to ask you because you own that cow. And it's the same thing. This is the same mentality that these guys, they're willing to sacrifice everybody in the country just to stay in power. And any, forget about that he's a dictator, but there are dictators that want the well-being of their citizens. These dictators, they don't care. I mean, anybody with a sense of humanity wouldn't stay in power seeing 7 million people dispersed all over the world. I mean, if he had a sense of decency, he would have resigned a long time ago. So this guy is not going to be removed from the throne like Ceausescu in Romania, or all of the East European dictators. They were deposed and they were shot, and that's the problem. I mean, it's a violent conflict, and the problem is that people in power, they don't care.
Mm-hmm. How much worse can this get, and what's going to be the end game? What, if anything, can get Assad out of power and get Syria transitioning back to being really a functioning nation?
Unfortunately, this is not going to happen soon, and there is no magical bullet or a magical recipe for this. The only way that he will be out of power is either Russia will basically comes to its senses.
That's going to be a long way.
Yeah, and then they can carve maybe a part of the Syrian state and give him power over there, or have him move to a third country with guarantees and stuff. Well, that's the diplomatic solution. The other solution is that for this to continue until his regime falls, because basically with a lot of pressure from military pressure, and then you have maybe his army will decide to get rid of him because it's a threat on them. But those are the only two ways. But there is no third option of the guy saying, well, oh gee, I'm going to look at the interests of the country and I'm going to resolve this democratically. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Going back to the Bush administration, we got involved in a lot of wars in the Middle East, and so a lot of Americans are very anxious and don't want to see us get involved into another large war. But I'm not saying like we should, but does it seem at some point that it might be almost inevitable that not necessarily we get involved, but other nations start getting involved in Syria, just because it's so ongoing, it's been going on for such a long time, there doesn't seem to be an end in sight. Is other intervention like almost inevitable at this point, and is there any way we can like not have that happen and have this? Is there any way that's going to not happen?
Well, let's look at the option of doing nothing, which.
Yeah.
We have a track record of 7 years of doing nothing.
Seriously.
So
you're not wrong.
You're not wrong at all.
So you have millions of people have left. Okay. And now, if you look at the countries bordering Syria, like Lebanon and Jordan and Turkey, they took a lot of refugees. Now, these countries, they don't have a lot of resources. Turkey is a large country, but Lebanon and Jordan, they're small countries.
Yeah.
Economically, they don't have a lot of resources, so that puts a lot of pressure on these countries, and they could destabilize these countries. Now let's look at what happened after that. You have mass refugee waves going into Europe, and what happened? You have, as a result of that, you have Brexit happening. Because the Brits they don't want to accept any more refugees. It's putting pressure on a lot of European countries.
Le Pen and France.
Exactly, basically to go way to the right. And so the price of doing nothing is really, it's threatening Western democracies. The United States is isolated because of the ocean, but and they can limit the number of people coming. But if you're Europe, what do you do with waves and waves of refugees that are coming to your border? I mean, you cannot just tell them to go back. So they something needs to be done.
Yeah.
And now, whether it's military or not, this conflict has to be resolved. Otherwise, it's impacting everybody. So, and that's why it's important to look at, who's co-signing this regime. You have Russia, you have Iran. So these are the major two powers that, by the way, Iran is also meddling in Iraq, and we're seeing the results of that. So there needs to be political pressure to resolve this. Now, whether the Trump administration would be able to do that, especially with Russia, that's to be seen. You talk about China. China needs to be brought in because China is also a major power. They have economic ties with Syria and with Iran. So people need to see that the danger of this. That this is not an isolated civil war somewhere where it's not impacting everybody else.
Speaking more generally in terms of Islam, the religion, a lot is made in the press of Sunni Islam versus Shia. Yeah, thank you. Very bright. What are, for our viewers, what are the main differences between Sunnis and Shiites? What are the differences? Why have there been conflicts between those two? What can resolve them? Just, if you could, an overview and really what the main differences are there.
The faith itself is not different. You
right.
know, like it's not an issue of the belief. The issue is really political, from the sense that the Shia Muslims, they believe that religious authority and political authority has to be in a form of one person, and that person has to be from the bloodline of Prophet Muhammad. So they believe that, and this what created this schism, that after the death of Prophet Muhammad, that everybody that succeeded in political authority is not legitimate, except for the cousin of the Prophet. So that's not the view of Sunni Muslims. And again, Sunni Muslims, they have their own proofs from sayings of the Prophet, or religious proofs that that's not the case. That it's not an issue of a bloodline. It's an issue of who's most suitable to be leading politically. And Sunni Muslims don't look at a political leader that has to be a religious leader. That those are two separate things. So that's why we look at a country like Iran, which is the main Shia country that has a political system based on that ideology. You have a president that's elected, but he's powerless. You have a supreme leader, so he's a religious leader, yet he can overrule policies. Mm-hmm. So, and we can see the danger of that, because now there is no check on that guy, because this is, you're Catholic, so, but this is like having a Catholic Pope.
That was the problem with the popes and the Protestants.
Exactly. So you're looking at this like in the like 14th century or 13th century, where you have the Pope overruling kings, and there's no check on even the religious authority of the Pope. Well, we have the same thing now in Iran, where you have no check on the religious authority of the supreme leader, and nobody can argue with him. It's like, well, look, your religious opinion is wrong. This is not right. You cannot do that. So Sunni Muslims don't believe that. Sunni Muslims believe that people are fallible. They can make mistakes. Even religious leaders, they have, they can be right and they can be wrong. So this is the main difference. Now, when we see what's happening, when you basically have a country that's ruled by a religious authority, that there is no checks and balances on that authority, we see that, for example, Iran, it's getting poorer. The population is getting poorer. There is an elite, which is, again, this is not really, it's not like it's a Puritan society where really they believe in what they preach. So these guys, they have an elite that is benefiting from the system. The majority of the people, they're not benefiting from the system. So that's why you have poverty is getting more in Iran, and they're spending a lot of their money in escapades, like what they're doing in Iraq, what they're doing in Syria. So that's,
and because of the Ayatollah, the inability to check him, his rulings can come from wherever, the Quran or otherwise.
No, it doesn't come from that, really, because any opposition to that religious authority, it's met by imprisonment, right, or worse. And Islam as a faith opened up the debate and dialogue between people, between Muslims and the way they believe. And you look at the Islamic tradition, even during the time of the Prophet, people interpreted things differently, and he didn't say you're right or you're wrong. So he opened that. But that's not happening, and it's not because of the Shia doctrine, but I think it's because of the people themselves. And when they twist the way they believe in things, and have something like that in Saudi Arabia. I mean, we're not going to just talk about Shia in Iran. We talk about Shia Sunni clerics in Saudi Arabia, where also their authority are not checked, and they have this alliance between them and between the ruling family. Basically, you don't bother us. We can do whatever we want. So then we will prevent women from driving. Well, there is no religious text that says that. There is no religious basis of saying that. So, but then they have the authority, and nobody checks and challenges that authority. So Islam is not like that. Islam basically puts sanctity on blood and sanctity on freedoms. That even a king or a ruler cannot take your freedom and cannot take your or shed your blood. But that's not what we see.
Obama once said that in an interview with I think it was Bill Maher, that he said when he goes to sleep at night, what's something that keeps him awake? He said it was Iran. It's like Iran's one of the biggest things that makes him go to bed kind of worried. Speaking to the kind of future for peace in the Middle East, we all know the problems in Syria, but how much also lands on Iran right now? I mean, Iran is also one of the major powers out there. They said they're dabbling in Iraq. How much is it going to come down to change in Iran as well to really finding some sort of path to peace?
I think that's the X factor. It's Iran, and the way they meddle in the Middle East. I mean, you're focusing on Iraq and Syria, but also they're in Yemen, and they're supporting rebels in Yemen. Basically, they're practicing bad policies, and they're destabilizing the Middle East. And all of these, you asked about conflicts, and when Saddam was in Iraq, I mean, hate him or like him or whatever, he was a dictator, but you didn't hear about sectarian.
Yeah, you didn't hear about all these other movements.
Exactly. So you didn't hear about this sectarian violence between Sunni and Shia and stuff like that. So it was the Bush going into Iraq, basically trying to break up the system over there, instead of saying, well, we move Saddam, let's keep everything intact and try to build on that. So he blew up the system over there, and then he sees the result of that. You have sectarian violence, you have Iran meddling in the Middle East, while when you had a strong Iraq, Iran was in check, so that was the check and balances increasing. So something needs to happen, and either you have a change from within in Iran or bring them in politically. I mean, the sanctions that were put in there were crippling. The problem is that always you have other players that don't see that, like China, like Russia, so they can get away from the sanctions. But I think those were good policies to try to get them to change their behavior. But you're not going to be able to solve the Middle East problem without getting the Iranians on board and changing their behaviors. Exactly.
Yemen has been a lightning rod of controversy in the last few years. What have the issues been there, and why is the United States so heavily involved in military action in Yemen?
Good question.
Yemen is almost a lawless country. It's very tribal. It's a country that was never colonized by anybody. It was very hard to colonize. Everybody's armed over there, and you had a government before this happened. You had a government that was propped by Saudi Arabia. So this is a good environment for extremist groups to grow and to fester. So that's why it was on the radar of the U.S. For example, you had a U.S.-born cleric, his name is Anwar al-Awlaqi, that actually a lot of young recruits to ISIS listened to him. And he was from a Yemeni parents, and he went to Yemen, and he was killed during Obama's 8 years with a drone. Now, this guy had a lot of followings, a lot of Al-Qaeda followings, and there are people like him over there. So the thing is, Yemen is a poor country and has not been developed. So it's very easy for a country like Iran to pour money in there and buy support.
Because there's just nothing there.
Because, yeah, exactly. So you can go to large tribes that on the Saudi border or wherever, and then arm them, give them money, and have them instigate trouble. And that's what's happening. The Houthi rebels, Shia rebels that are supported by Iran, and that destabilizing Yemen. So now they've thrown Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates into a war to try to move them. But it's not easy. The topography of Yemen is very hard. Like I said, there are a lot of tribes, and the problem is that when you have a tribal mentality, that if somebody from the tribe is killed, regardless if you're with him or against him with respect to ideology, then you wanna take revenge. So then you become part of that movement. So this is a very strategic country because of the location on the Red Sea. A lot of traffic goes through Yemen to go to the Suez Canal. So this is a very strategic country, and something needs to be done. You're not hearing anything, but remember the USS Cole during Clinton, it was bombed by rebels from Yemen. So I mean, this is, and also the bombing in Kenya, they were people from Yemen that went there. So it is a hotbed for terrorism because it's a failed state.
Any more?
Yeah, just what's going on at the community center these days? How have things been there? What have you seen in terms of perhaps turnout? Any controversies? How has it been?
Actually, we were very fortunate that we got a few protesters that came to the mosque 2 Fridays ago. So it was during the Final Four, and these guys are lunatics that came from California, and it seems that we were not the only people on their agenda. So they went to, they protested in front of the Catholic Church. They went to an LGBT church, and everywhere. And then they decided to come to the mosque. Of course. Unfortunately, this time, I mean, we always have a good relationship with Phoenix Police. This time, Phoenix Police really did a terrible job. They failed miserably. Number one, they came less than 24 hours before these people want to show up to tell us that they're coming. So there's not enough time to do anything. Secondly, we talked to them about where they can put barricades. They said, well, they don't have barricades because all of them were in the Final Four.
Right.
So okay. So then we talked about, can we please have them in a place that's not a flash point? And they said yes. Well, next the next day, which was a Friday, they were at a flash point where people were going to get their cars, and some people got really upset. And we talked to the Phoenix Police. They were like, well, we can't tell them where to go. Well, you do that all the time. You tell people where to go and where to stand. So I'm hoping that we're going to try to meet with the chief of police and try to, because this is, I'm responsible for 1,000 people that come to the mosque on Friday, and that's what they ask as well. I have to control 1,000 people, not to be emotional and do anything, yet they cannot control like 6 or 7 people. Yeah, that's not fair.
Absolutely agree with that.
Well, best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, really aggressive.
Really intense. Everything's going to be okay. Everything will be okay. So, thank you so much for coming on, though.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll wear a different shirt next time.
And I hope that will be a next time.
We will hope. Alrighty.
Well, final word time now on the Millennial Manifesto. Our live show just wrapping up. Usama Shami, our guest today. We want to thank him again.
Another wonderful, great conversation with him. Always. We've got really great conversation this time. I thought we dived into some really deep topics, really spicy topics that are really
spicy.
They're around.
Muy caliente.
Muy caliente. They're around people. These are really important topics for everyone to know about. Just like we always say, stay in tune, stay up with the news.
Read the news.
Stay involved. Just care. Please care for our sake.
Please,
we're trying to make
care.
you care. We're trying to make you care, please.
Couldn't have said it better. All right, what else you got?
That's about it.
All right.
I'm starving. I'm gonna eat some donuts.
We got donuts?
We got donuts, dude.
Baller. Let's get donuts. All right, so sign off message. You can follow me on Twitter at JBBeren. It's JBBEREN.
At Leon Lajo 21, LeonLajo 21, all on Twitter. Right? That's our Twitter handles. Follow the TMM podcast on Twitter and follow us on Facebook. That's where you're probably going to watch this, and we'll probably get this up on NEVN as well.
NE Valley News, that's Northeast Valley News. Make sure to stay tuned to the website. A lot of great content going up there. A lot of great stories from both Scottsdale and Paradise Valley Community Colleges.
And I think that's all we got.
Hey,
Driving
we will give you a shout out. Shout out on that.
Yeah, I teach at GCC, so.
On what's Janet say again? Is on shameless plug or something? Shameless plug, baby. Alrighty. Other than that, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time, everybody. Stay classy.